Chapter 1. The Accident. The scent of exhaust and roasting chestnuts filled the air as Mei Ling stepped onto the crosswalk, plastic bag of groceries swinging from one arm. The city was always overwhelming to her. Loud, crowded, blinking with neon and noise, but she tried to stay calm. She was just visiting her cousin for the weekend. After all, her quiet hometown in the countryside didn't even have a traffic light. She was halfway across the street when she saw the child. A boy, maybe 6 years old, standing at the edge of the curb while his mother argued on the phone nearby. Then in the blink of an eye, he darted forward. Her instincts kicked in before her thoughts could catch up. The bag dropped. Her legs moved. "Watch out," she screamed, pushing forward just as the honking began. Tires squealed. Then, darkness. No pain. No time to scream. Just nothing. She opened her eyes to the sharp scent of antiseptic. A white ceiling blurred into view. And for bag. The beep of a heart monitor. Her body ached in places she couldn't identify, and her mouth felt dry as sand. "Water," she croaked. A nurse startled. "You're awake, Miss May. I'll call the doctor right away." "Miss May?" She frowned. The nurse rushed out. Mei Ling slowly pushed herself up, confusion clouding her mind. Her arms, slimmer. Her nails, manicured. Her hospital gown clean and expensive. Everything felt wrong. Then she saw the mirror. Her reflection stared back. Flawless skin, double eyelids, a sharp nose. This wasn't her face. Panic rose like a wave. She looked around for clues and spotted a phone on the table nearby. As she picked it up, notifications flooded the screen. Net news. Actress Mei Ling pushes co-star into river? Trending, #Mei Ling villainous again. Weibo comment. Why is she always in scandals? Her heart raced. Actress Mei Ling? She sat in stunned silence until a sharp pain cracked through her skull. Images flooded her vision like lightning. Memories not her own. The push on set. The scream. The water swallowing her whole. Role. A script. A story. She knew this plot. "Oh my God," she whispered. "I transmigrated into a book. Not just any book. Sweet Schemes, the web novel she'd hate read last year after her friend recommended it. It was about a green tea female lead who rose to fame through clever manipulation, always appearing innocent while her rivals conveniently self-destructed. And the second female lead? A villainess named Mei Ling, beautiful, arrogant, obsessed with the male lead, the movie emperor, and ultimately doomed. This was the body she now occupied. The villainess who drowned after trying to push the female lead into a river on set, only to fall in herself. And now, she was alive again. The director's voice was shrill and scolding when she returned to the set. "You scared everyone, Mei Ling. And the media's eating us alive." Mei Ling bowed low. "I'm sorry, Director Zhang. It won't happen again." He stared at her. "You're polite today." She forced a smile. "Maybe it knocked some sense into me." The crew whispered as she passed, their eyes suspicious. Her co-stars kept their distance. When she reached her dressing room, the atmosphere shifted again. Sitting on the velvet couch was the female lead. Qiao Yuran. Beautiful, delicate, and sweet as honey, at least on the surface. The green tea queen of the novel. Mei, Yuran said gently, eyes watering. "I was so worried about you. Are you okay now?" Mei Ling's spine tensed. In the novel, Yuran always played the victim. She had subtly framed the original Mei Ling again and again. Once she accidentally released clips of Mei Ling losing her temper. Another time she manipulated a wardrobe malfunction to humiliate her on live television. The old Mei Ling fell into every trap like a moth to a flame. But this Mei Ling had read the entire book. And she had no intention of becoming a footnote in someone else's happily ever after. "I'm fine," Mei Ling said with a calm smile. "Thank you for your concern, Miss Qiao." "Miss Qiao." "Not Yuran." "Not sister." Just distant politeness. Yuran blinked, momentarily thrown off. You don't look so good, she said, trying again. Maybe you should rest more. Let me talk to the director about reducing your scenes. How kind, Mei Ling thought. How strategic. That won't be necessary, she replied smoothly. Actually, I've made my decision. She stood tall, spine straight, heart pounding. I'm leaving the show. Yuran's smile froze. You're quitting. The role no longer suits me, Mei Ling said simply. Let someone else be the villain. The news hit the headlines the next morning. Breaking: Mei Ling drops drama role after drowning incident. Unprofessional or traumatized. Netizen reactions: good riddance. She's afraid of water now? She should quit showbiz altogether. Mei Ling scrolled through the comments with a numb expression. Even now, in a new life, the character's reputation haunted her. She shut off the screen. In the book, Mei Ling had lost everything chasing a man who never loved her. She'd suffered scandal after scandal, all thanks to the schemes of a manipulative heroine and a blind male lead. Well, not this time. I'm not playing by your script anymore, she murmured. She had to stay away from both leads. He had to survive. A ping interrupted her thoughts. Her new assistant Xiaolin sent a message. There's a casting call for a new variety show. They need female stars for a survival series. Filming in the jungle. Are you interested? A jungle? Mei Ling looked out the window. Her fingers stilled. She remembered chasing chickens in muddy fields. Building tree swings. Foraging wild berries. Back when her world was real and grounded. Tell them I'm in, she typed back. Chapter 2. Refusing the script. Mei Ling sat across from her manager, Wen Jie, in the company's private lounge. The tension in the air was so thick you could slice it with a butter knife. You want to what? Wen Jie nearly dropped his coffee. I said I'm not taking on any more dramas for now, Mei Ling repeated calmly. Especially ones involving Qiao Yuran or Gu Yeshuan. Wen Jie stared at her like she'd grown a second head. Do you know how hard I fought to get you on that show? You were finally getting screen time again. Now you want to go film? What was it? A reality survival show. Mei Ling nodded once. Yes. You're not cut out for that, he snapped. You're delicate. You're a city girl. You wear foundation just to go to the grocery store. Mei Ling's lips twitched. She could imagine what the original Mei Ling must have been like. Pampered, artificial, and obsessed with her image. But she was not that girl. I grew up in the countryside, Manager Wen, she said gently. I can fish, build shelter, and cook with wild herbs. I'm not worried. He blinked. You what? I'm not doing this to rebel, she added. I just want something different. Something honest. He looked at her long and hard. Finally, he sighed and rubbed his forehead. This won't go over well. The netizens already think you're unstable. I'd rather be real than popular, she said. And if people still hate me, at least I'll know it's not because I played into someone else's script. Wen Jie sighed again, slower this time. Fine. I'll reach out to the producers of the survival show. Just don't make me regret this. The show was called Wilderness Challenge, Celebrity Edition. 12 celebrities. For weeks. One remote jungle in southern China. No electricity. No phones. Limited rations. The moment Mei Ling stepped out of the production van, she felt the familiar warmth of sun on her skin and the soft crunch of earth under her boots. The trees stretched wide above her like open arms. She exhaled. For the first time in days, she felt something close to peace. The rest of the cast was arriving in sleek black vans. Familiar faces from idol groups, influencers, a fashion model, and 2 actors known more for scandals than talent. They all glanced at her with thinly veiled skepticism. Is that Mei Ling? She's the one who quit that drama, right? Didn't she push someone into a river? She ignored the whispers. One of the male idols, a skinny boy with blue hair, looked her up and down. Are you sure you're in the right place? This isn't a spa shoot. Before she could answer, the director shouted for everyone to line up. Cameras rolled. Drones flew overhead. The survival host, a former army soldier named Brother Hai, welcomed the cast with military enthusiasm. From this point on, you'll be responsible for your own food, water, and shelter, he announced. Your only help will come from each other. Good luck. Some of the idols groaned. The model wrinkled her nose. But Mei Ling smiled faintly. This was nothing compared to her childhood days of bathing in the river, using bamboo sticks to catch frogs, or climbing trees to harvest wild jujubes. By the end of the first day, half the cast was in meltdown mode. Where's the bathroom? We have to boil our own water? This firewood is wet. Is that a mosquito or a bird? Mei Ling, meanwhile, had already gathered dry sticks, cleared a patch of flat ground, and constructed a basic tent out of large banana leaves and paracord from her survival kit. She dug a small trench around the tent to avoid water runoff, tied up her hair with a piece of cloth, and set up a makeshift stone ring for fire. When night fell, most of the others were cold, wet, and complaining. Mei Ling had a fire going and hot tea brewing from wild lemongrass. The cameraman zoomed in on her face. Calm, focused, beautiful in the golden light of the flames. Live comments on the show's stream. Wait, is that Mei Ling? Since when is she like this? She's kind of cool. She built a shelter in like an hour. My girlfriend can't even put up a beach umbrella. The next morning, Mei Ling woke early and began teaching the other girls how to collect dew using large leaves and how to avoid poisonous berries. She did it without arrogance, without showing off. Just gentle suggestions and demonstrations. Some resisted at first, but after a few of them ended up itchy from mystery vines, they began listening. She even patched up a cut on the arm of one of the influencers with handmade gauze and honey from a beehive she'd spotted. Where did you even learn all this? Asked the girl in awe. Mei Ling smiled. I grew up where this was daily life. Meanwhile, back in the city, the survival show's live stream was climbing the trending charts. Most surprisingly, Mei Ling's clips were topping them. One fan made a compilation of her fire building, fishing, and jungle foraging skills, calling her the real female lead of survival. Hashtag Mei Ling Survival Queen hit top 10 on Weibo. When Jia couldn't believe it when he checked her tag feed. Netizens were changing their tune. I hated her before, but now I kind of stan. She went from drama queen to jungle queen. Y'all sure she didn't get possessed or something? He laughed under his breath. If only you knew. Then his phone buzzed again, this time from a private number. The CEO's assistant. President Liu would like to schedule a meeting, the voice said. He's impressed with Miss Mei Ling's recent performance. When Jia blinked. President Liu? Of Starreach Media? The top agency in the country? The one that managed half the A-list? He slowly smiled. Well, Mei Ling. You really are rewriting your story. Chapter 3, Into the Jungle. The third morning in the jungle dawned with a curtain of mist curling through the trees. Crickets chirped in rhythm, and birds called overhead as the sun filtered through the thick canopy. Mei Ling was already up, crouching beside a shallow stream as she used a handmade strainer to catch freshwater shrimp. Her fingers were quick and practiced, her breath calm. In this world of mud, leaves, and dew, she was a queen. She hadn't meant to stand out. Her goal was simply to survive, to steer clear of the script that had doomed the original Mei Ling. But now, despite her best efforts to lie low, she was drawing attention. From the crew, from the audience, and increasingly from her castmates. Later that morning, the cast was tasked with building a larger communal shelter. Most of the others were dragging their feet, swatting bugs, and complaining about the heat. One of the idols, Qingyiran, a sleek, sharp-tongued singer with more attitude than stamina, leaned against a tree eyeing her. You sure you're not a professional camper in disguise? He muttered, wiping sweat off his brow. Mei Ling raised a brow. Why? Jealous. I'm suspicious, he replied, narrowing his eyes. You're either a genius or a fraud. Or maybe, she said with a faint smirk, you just underestimated me. He huffed but said no more. By the end of the task, the only parts of the shelter that didn't collapse belonged to Mei Ling's section. It even had a leaf-woven roof that kept out the drizzle when it started raining that afternoon. The production team gave her the rare Star of the Day badge, and social media exploded once again. Comments under the survival show livestream. I trust Mei Ling with my life in the apocalypse. She doesn't just survive, she thrives. She used to be a bad girl actress, now she's a forest goddess? Qing Yuran better humble himself l. But not everyone was pleased. Behind the scenes, Su Anya, the glamorous fashion influencer on the cast, watched with thinly veiled irritation as Mei Ling gained fans by the hour. Su Anya had expected to be the main star. But every time the editors cut an episode, Mei Ling's competence made her own whining look worse by comparison. She's doing this on purpose, Su Anya whispered to her friend during a break. No one's that good at survival unless they're trying to rebrand. And it's working, her friend muttered. Even President Liu reposted a clip of her on his feed. Su Anya's eyes narrowed. President Liu? That President Liu? Meanwhile, in the Starreach Media headquarters, President Liu Yanzhou leaned back in his leather chair, eyes fixed on the tablet screen. The video clip played Mei Ling's quiet but confident instructions on building a rainproof shelter. There was no theatrics. No flirtation. Just skill. Authenticity. I remember her, he murmured, sipping his coffee. She used to cry through auditions. What happened? She drowned, his assistant Jia said dryly. And came back a different woman. He raised an eyebrow. That sounds ominous. She's trending on 5 platforms, Jia added. Netizen sentiment has flipped in 3 days. We should sign her before someone else does. Liu Yanzhou said nothing for a moment, tapping a finger on his desk. Then, set up a meeting when she's back. Back in the jungle. The rain came hard that night. Thunder roared through the canopy and wind howled through the branches. The flimsy shelters the others built collapsed one by one, leaving their owners scrambling in soaked pajamas. Only Mei Ling's structure held. She stood just inside the edge of her shelter, eyes scanning the chaos. Then she sighed, grabbed her poncho and stepped into the storm. Everyone under here, she called. Hurry before the wind gets worse. Several of the girls bolted toward her voice. Qing Yuran followed, dragging 2 duffel bags and cursing under his breath. Why are you helping them? Asked the influencer girl, shivering. They mocked you 2 days ago. Mei Ling tossed her a towel. Because I'm not here to play revenge games, she said simply. I'm here to survive. They stared at her. In that moment, under the orange flicker of lightning and the drum of rain, something shifted in the group's dynamic. She was no longer the outsider. She was the anchor. The next day, the crew rewarded her with a bonus item from the survival box. She could choose one of 3 things. A lighter, a bag of rice, or a satellite phone for emergency contact. Mei Ling picked the rice. We'll make it last 5 days. The producers grinned. It was the right answer. Smart and selfless. As the days passed, she taught more skills. Weaving mats, digging a natural fridge pit, boiling bark for natural mosquito repellent. She didn't dominate conversations or flaunt her intelligence. She just worked quietly and steadily. But what she didn't know was that a mysterious viewer had been watching the unedited live feeds every night. Liu Yanzhou. And for reasons even he couldn't explain, he found himself smiling at her dry humor, her unpolished charm, and the way she never sought validation. When Mei Ling tripped and fell into a bush trying to chase a wild chicken, and laughed at herself while brushing off leaves, he actually laughed out loud in his office. She was unexpectedly the most unpretentious celebrity he'd seen in years. That night, the cast gathered for a campfire Q&A session. A producer prompted, "Who do you think will become the breakout star after this show?" Eyes turned towards Su Anya as if by habit. But Qing Yuran grinned. Mei Ling, obviously. Who else built us shelter and caught our lunch? Several others nodded. Su Anya forced a tight smile. Mei Ling just chuckled and poked at the fire. Let's just make it through the last week in one piece. As the stars blinked above the canopy, Mei Ling leaned back and looked up, breath fogging in the cool air. This jungle, unforgiving, wild and honest, was nothing like the industry she'd been trapped in before. And yet here she had found a version of herself she didn't know existed. Not a villainess. Not a rival. Just a woman determined to survive. And finally to live. Chapter 4. New offers, new dangers. The jungle was behind her now. Mei Ling sat by the window of the production van, watching the green blur of trees give way to highways and skyscrapers. She could still smell smoke on her jacket and the earthy tang of wild ginger on her hands. But that chapter had closed. She was going back into the lion's den. The city glittered like a stage lit for a performance, and she was no longer a background actor. She'd been trending for 7 consecutive days. Her name was now synonymous with genuine, competent, and cool. The internet had flipped its opinion of her so fast it gave her whiplash. Hashtag Mei Ling Survival Queen. Hashtag Jungle Beauty. Hashtag Rewriting Mei Ling. Even those who once labeled her a villain were now uploading compilation videos of her best moments from the show. One fan had edited a mini documentary titled, The Rise of Mei Ling. Another meme page jokingly crowned her, the nation's survival girlfriend. She should have felt proud. But Mei Ling had read the book. She knew this fame was a storm, thrilling, fast and dangerous. And every storm had an eye at its center. When she returned to her apartment, she found her mailbox stuffed with sponsorship letters, invites to variety shows and interview requests. When Jia was pacing the living room waving a tablet like a madman. You've got 6 agency offers. 6. Starreach wants to set up a private meeting. President Liu himself. Mei Ling sat on the couch, letting the moment wash over her. Okay. Mei Ling, this is your redemption arc. You've got leverage. People finally like you. Use it before they forget. I'm not in a rush, she said calmly. I don't want to be everywhere. I want to be right. When Jia froze mid-pace, he blinked, slowly lowered the tablet. Who are you and what have you done with the real Mei Ling? She smirked. She drowned. Didn't you hear? The meeting with Starreach Media was scheduled 3 days later. Mei Ling arrived dressed simply, cream blouse, beige slacks, hair tied back in a low ponytail. She had no stylist, no assistant, no branded accessories. Just a canvas bag and a calm heart. The receptionist led her into a sleek office on the top floor. Glass walls, floor-to-ceiling windows, a minimalist aesthetic that screamed power. And then she saw him. Yanzhou, president of Starreach. Business tycoon. The man who could turn nobodies into legends with a single phone call. He was seated behind a black marble desk wearing a tailored navy suit. No tie. Sharp jawline, colder eyes. But when he looked up at her, something flickered behind the calm. Amusement, maybe. Miss Mei Ling, he said. Or should I say, Jungle Queen? She blinked, surprised. You watched. I don't waste time on things that don't interest me, he replied. Her spine straightened slightly. And I suppose I've earned your interest? He tilted his head. You're not what I expected. Good, she said. Expectations are overrated. A slow smile tugged at the corner of his lips. The meeting went better than she anticipated. Liu Yanzhou didn't offer her a basic contract. He offered a development deal. Her own team, project autonomy and priority placement for upcoming endorsements and lead roles. When Jia almost fainted when he read the draft terms. This is insane. He doesn't give these to just anyone. But Mei Ling wasn't swayed by offers anymore. She asked for time to consider. She wasn't stepping into another trap. She needed to know if the deal came with strings, or worse, enemies. And sure enough, it didn't take long for the first snake to slither out of the grass. Qiao Yuran, the supposed female lead of the original novel. The national sweetheart. Soft-spoken, sweet-eyed, and cunning as a fox with a halo. She hadn't contacted Mei Ling once during the survival show, but the day Mei Ling's contract rumors started circulating, she suddenly sent a message. "Let's meet. I'd love to catch up." Mei Ling stared at the message, her lips curling slightly. She had no interest in walking into another trap. But maybe this time she wouldn't be the one who fell in. They met at a rooftop cafe. Qiao Yuran arrived dressed like a magazine cover. Flowing dress, dainty heels, and that ever-innocent smile she wore like armor. "Ling Ling," she said warmly, hugging her. "You've changed so much. I barely recognized you on that show. You were amazing." Mei Ling accepted the hug but didn't return it. She sat across from her and smiled politely. "You watched." "Of course. Everyone did. You were like a different person. It's inspiring." There was a pause. Then Qiao Yuran leaned forward, voice lowering slightly. "Listen, I heard about the Starreach deal. Congratulations." "Thank you. I also heard that they might be considering you for the female lead in Spring Echoes." Mei Ling sipped her tea. That was a high-budget romantic drama that had been developed for months. Qiao Yuran had originally been tapped for the role. "But there it is. I think you'd be perfect for it," Yuran continued sweetly. "But the industry can be tricky. You know how easily things can turn." Mei Ling set down her cup. "Is that a threat?" Qiao Yuran laughed as if scandalized. "No, of course not. I just think we should support each other. Women should lift each other up, don't you agree?" Mei Ling looked her in the eye. "For years I tried to lift you up," she said evenly. "But you used my hands as stepping stones. Not anymore." Qiao Yuran's smile froze for a fraction of a second. Mei Ling stood. "Thanks for the tea," and walked away. Later that night, a rumor surfaced on Weibo. Survival show star has history of on-set tantrums? Anonymous insider claims Mei Ling sabotaged co-stars during drama filming last year. It didn't take a genius to guess where it came from. But this time the response was different. The Jungle cast rallied behind her, posting selfies and behind-the-scenes clips of Mei Ling being helpful, funny, and kind. Qing Yuran even did a livestream where he said, "If Mei Ling's bad, then I'm a panda." Netizens laughed. The rumor flopped. Mei Ling didn't even need to lift a finger. The game had changed. She wasn't a pawn anymore. Chapter 5. The Audition. The casting call for Spring Echoes was discreet, invitation only. The drama was being developed by one of the top production houses in the country, with Yanzhou's Starreach co-producing. It was a mature, emotional love story between a struggling screenwriter and a reclusive novelist. The role of the female lead was complex, demanding subtlety and emotional range. A far cry from the scheming vixens Mei Ling had always been typecast as. But that was the past. Today she walked into the audition room with no fear in her step. She wore a simple linen blouse and jeans. No designer labels, no heavy makeup. Just her and the truth she carried in her chest. Inside the studio, the panel of judges sat behind a long table. Executives, producers, and the director of Spring Echoes, Liu Zemin, known for his sharp tongue and colder eyes. Mei Ling bowed politely. Then her breath caught. At the far end of the table, half-shadowed behind the panel, sat Ji Qin. The movie emperor. Her childhood playmate. The man she used to love. And the man who never once looked back. He hadn't changed much. Same sculpted features. Same cool, impassive gaze. But there was something older in him now. A tiredness behind the eyes. Their gazes met for the first time in 2 years. No flicker of recognition. No warmth. It stung more than it should have. But Mei Ling didn't let it show. She straightened her spine and looked to director Liu. "Ready when you are." The audition scene. The female lead confronts her long-lost lover who ghosted her years ago. She's not here to beg. She's here to say goodbye. It was ironically far too close to home. The hammer rolled. Silence filled the room. Mei Ling stepped into the spotlight. And transformed. Her voice trembled at first, not from nerves but from restraint. Her eyes glistened, not with tears, but with the pain of a woman who had already cried herself empty long ago. "You don't get to come back now," she said in a quiet, cracking tone. "Not when I've already taught myself how to stop waiting." Even the cold-hearted director leaned forward. Ji Chen's gaze, however, remained unreadable. She delivered the final line. "I didn't forget you. I just outgrew you." Cut. Silence. Then a slow clap from Director Liu. "Mei Ling, was it?" he asked. "Who trained you?" "No one," she replied honestly. "I used to perform to an empty mirror." He stared at her. "You just buried every actress we've seen this week." Even Ji Chen said nothing. But as she turned to leave, he spoke finally. "Wait." She stopped. Ji Chen stood. His voice was still cool but quieter. "You're different." Mei Ling turned her head slightly, one brow lifting. "And you're still the same." She walked out. Outside the building, when Jia was pacing like an anxious father. "How did it go?" "I gave them the truth," Mei Ling said. "What they do with it is up to them. You're terrifying when you're calm." She just smiled and pulled out her phone. A message had arrived. From Lu Yanzhou. "You have the role. Congratulations. Also, I'd like to schedule dinner. Strictly professional. For now." Mei Ling chuckled. "Good news." When Jia asked. "I got the part," she said, tucking her phone away. "And possibly a dinner invitation from my future boss." Later that night. She couldn't sleep. The city lights flickered through her curtains as she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. Ji Chen's face kept intruding on her thoughts. Not the Ji Chen from the audition, but the one from her youth. The boy who used to chase fireflies with her. Who gave her his umbrella in the rain. Who once whispered to her during a school play, "You're the only star I see." That memory wasn't in the novel. It was hers. But the Ji Chen of today wasn't the boy she remembered. He was a man shaped by a brutal industry and his own ambitions. And she was no longer the girl who followed behind him like a shadow. She had stepped into her own light. Meanwhile, at Ji Chen's apartment, he poured himself a drink and stared at the cityscape through his penthouse window. "Mei Ling," he murmured as if testing the sound. She had surprised him. Not with her talent, he'd always known she had potential, but with her poise. Her restraint. Her transformation. Where had this version of her come from? And why did he feel for the first time in a long time like he had made a mistake? Online the next morning. The cast list for Spring Echoes was leaked. Lead actress, Mei Ling. Lead actor, Ji Chen. The internet exploded. OMG. Mei Ling and Ji Chen? Childhood friends to on-screen lovers? The survival queen finally gets her romance arc. Qiao Yuran must be punching air right now. All. Back at Starreach, Lu Yanzhou read the buzz with an unreadable expression. "She's magnetic," he said aloud. Jia, his assistant, looked up. "You mean talented?" "No," he replied. "That too. But people are drawn to her for a reason. She doesn't chase light. She is the light." Jia smirked. "You're becoming poetic, sir." "Dangerous habit," Lu Yanzhou muttered, and scrolled through Mei Ling's latest fan edits anyway. In Mei Ling's apartment, the sunlight bathed her kitchen in gold as she brewed tea. For once her hands didn't shake. She was no longer the second female lead in anyone's story. She was stepping into her own. And the real script hadn't even started yet. Chapter 6. Rumors and Rehearsals. The first day of filming dawned clear and sharp. Mei Ling stood at the edge of the set for Spring Echoes, the script held tightly in her hand. She was dressed in character, a quiet, unassuming screenwriter in soft gray knitwear. The outfit was simple, but she wore it like armor. The soundstage buzzed with quiet energy. Camera crews adjusting angles, lighting technicians barking orders, makeup artists moving like ghosts. And then she felt it. That presence. She turned and there he was. He, towering in a crisp black coat, calm as still water. The movie emperor. Her co-star. Her former first love. His gaze brushed over her like a cold breeze. "Morning." "Morning," she replied just as coolly. Their civility was brittle, rehearsed, like porcelain cups clinking politely before shattering. The first scene was an emotional one. Their characters meet again after years apart. Her character Xin Yu is still guarded. His Lu Nian has returned with quiet longing and an apology she doesn't want to hear. Ji Chen nailed his lines effortlessly, eyes deep and unreadable. But it was Mei Ling who stunned everyone. When the director called action, she didn't act, she simply was. Her voice carried the ache of too many silent years. Her eyes trembled with a restraint that made even the boom operator sniff quietly. When the director yelled cut, the silence hung heavy in the air. Ji Chen turned to her slowly, his eyes a little more focused now. He saw it. This wasn't the Mei Ling he left behind. This woman was a storm wrapped in silk. Word spread fast. Within 3 days, Spring Echoes was trending, before a single trailer dropped. Fans buzzed online. Their chemistry is insane. Is it just me or is Ji Chen actually trying? Mei Ling's eyes alone deserve an award. But where there was praise, jealousy soon followed. Qiao Yuran's camp leaked a story to a gossip blog. New star rising. But who did she step on to shine? Anonymous sources claim Mei Ling faked her survival show persona and stole the lead role from a more experienced actress. The article was vague but the implications were clear. And the timing, just as buzz for Spring Echoes climbed, was no accident. When Jie stormed into Mei Ling's dressing room holding his phone like a grenade. "Yuran's at it again. She's trying to paint you as a manipulative social climber." Mei Ling didn't even look up from her script. "Let her." "What?" "She wants me to react." "That's her game," Mei Ling said, calmly flipping to the next page. "But I don't play by her rules anymore." When Jie groaned, pulling at his hair. "Fine. But you better prepare for war. Because she's not stopping here." Sure enough, things began to go wrong on set. One afternoon, Mei Ling arrived to find her costume altered, too small to wear. Another time, her lines were swapped last minute with no rehearsal. Each time she handled it with grace. When her teacup accidentally shattered near her hand, cutting her finger, she simply smiled and said, "Some people are clumsy with knives. Others are clumsy with envy." And the crew? They were watching. They saw how she didn't complain. How she treated the lowest assistants with the same respect she gave the director. They started whispering about her in a different tone. Respectful. Proactive. Ji Chen noticed too. They weren't close, but the distance had changed. One day, during a break between scenes, she was sitting under a tree reviewing her notes when Ji Chen approached, holding 2 bottles of water. He extended one to her wordlessly. She looked up, surprised, then accepted it. "Didn't think you'd notice I was dehydrated," she said, twisting the cap. "I didn't," he replied dryly. "The director asked me to grab 2. She chuckled. "Should have known." He hesitated, then sat beside her, not quite touching. "You're different now," he said after a beat. "More centered." "You mean I stopped orbiting you?" He looked away. "That's not what I meant." "I know," she said softly. "But it's what I needed." He studied her in silence. "You were never weak, Mei Ling. Just too loyal to the wrong people." She didn't respond. But something in her chest, something bitter and tired, loosened its grip. That night after shooting wrapped, she found a bouquet in her dressing room. Wild jasmine and mountain lavender. Flowers from her hometown. There was no card. But she knew who sent it. And she also knew it didn't matter. Not anymore. Meanwhile, across town. Liu Yanzhou sat in his penthouse office, watching the leaked footage of Spring Echo's test reels. He paused on Mei Ling's face, her eyes glistening, lips trembling in a line that held back a hurricane of emotion. She wasn't just talented. She was alive on screen. Jia, his assistant, entered with coffee. "You've watched that same clip 5 times, sir." "She'll be bigger than Qiao Yuan ever was," he said absently. "Do I detect admiration?" "I detect potential," Liu Yanzhou replied. But his gaze lingered a moment longer on the screen. Then he said quietly, "Make sure she gets the lead offer for the historical romance we're funding. I don't want her taken by another studio." "Understood." Back on set. The final scene of the week was emotionally brutal. Xinyu confesses that she loved Lun Yan, but she will not go back to him. It's too late. It mirrored Mei Ling's own truth. She stood under the rain machine, drenched, shivering, but her voice never cracked. "You had all of me," she whispered, staring at Ji Qin. And still it wasn't enough. When the director called cut, even the crew applauded. Ji Qin didn't move. Because for the first time in his career, he couldn't tell where the script ended and the truth began. Chapter 7. The Past Returns. The days on set blurred into each other. Long hours, intense scenes, and careful, measured conversations with Ji Qin that danced around old ghosts. But something had shifted in Mei Ling. The girl who once cried silently over cruel fan comments and hurtful gossip had grown steel in her spine. She could feel herself changing, and yet she still woke up every morning with the same question at the edge of her thoughts. Is this real? Or will I wake up? The answer came on a quiet Tuesday afternoon. Filming had wrapped early due to a lightning storm. Mei Ling, still dressed in her character's muted beige cardigan, wandered into the small break room on set looking for coffee. That's when she saw her. A young woman, soaked from the rain, stood with her back to the door. Her thin jacket clung to her figure, and her hands trembled as she clutched a folded newspaper. "Sorry," Mei Ling said instinctively. "This room is..." The girl turned. Mei Ling's heart stopped. It was Su Ran. Her best friend. From the real world. From before the car accident. Before the book. They stared at each other, frozen. Su Ran dropped the newspaper. "Mei Ling?" Mei Ling stepped forward, disbelieving. Ran, how are you here?" "I don't know." Su Ran looked pale and panicked. "I was at the hospital, you were still in a coma, and then I walked out and I was here. I saw a flyer for this drama. I saw your face." She held out the newspaper, an entertainment article featuring Mei Ling and Ji Qin on set. Mei Ling's knees nearly buckled. "You're not imagining this?" Mei Ling whispered. "This world, you see it too?" "I see everything. I've been here for 3 days, Mei. This place, it's fake. Like some kind of story. A drama. And you're not supposed to be here." They sat in the back of a dim cafe hours later, their umbrellas dripping quietly by the door. Mei Ling wrapped her fingers around a warm cup of ginger tea. "I died," she said softly. "I think I really did." Su Ran flinched. "Don't say that. I was trying to save that child. I remember the headlights. The cold. Then I woke up in a hospital bed. But in this body." She looked down at her hands. Hands that had signed autographs, flipped scripts, held back slaps from Qiao Yuan. "These aren't mine." Su Ran leaned forward. "Mei, you're inside a book. I found your copy of Twilight Rose at the hospital. It was open on the last chapter. And I remember. This version of Mei Ling, the one in the book, she doesn't have a happy ending." "I know," Mei Ling whispered. "She dies. Miserably." "But you're changing things," Su Ran said urgently. "You're more popular now. You're not chasing Ji Qin. You're not falling for the lead's traps." Mei Ling looked out the window at the rain. "I'm not the second lead anymore." Back on set, rumors began to brew. Someone had seen Mei Ling with an unfamiliar woman who looked suspiciously like her. A double sister? A secret PR tactic? Qiao Yuran's team pounced on the gossip. Leaked. Mei Ling hires body double who looks like her real self? Comment. Was her survival show image all fake? When Jie nearly threw his phone against the wall. They're accusing you of cloning yourself now. Mei Ling, surprisingly calm, turned to him. Let them talk. You're seriously not going to deny it? No, she said. Because I'm too busy becoming someone they can't ignore. That night, Jichen found her rehearsing alone on the rooftop. The wind tossed her hair gently. A single spotlight on the concrete made her look like a scene pulled from a black and white film. You always do this, he said quietly. Do what? Punish yourself with solitude. She looked at him. And you punish yourself by not looking back. He stepped closer. Is that what you think I'm doing? No, she said. It's what I know you're doing. Jichen held her gaze. For a moment something in his expression cracked. Why are you different now? He asked. Because I died. He froze. What? She looked at him, eyes unreadable. I died. And then I woke up in this version of myself. With all the memories of someone who wasted years loving someone who never looked back. The silence between them roared like thunder. Jichen whispered, Is this your way of telling me it's too late? It's not too late, Mei Ling said. It was never even your time. In a quiet corner of the studio, Lu Yanzhou watched the footage playback from earlier that day. Mei Ling's scene, the confession, the heartbreak, the dignity. He rewound it. Watched her eyes shimmer again. She's not acting, he murmured. He pulled out his phone. Tijia. Clear Mei Ling's schedule in 2 weeks. I want her for the lead role in Autumn Court. She says no, triple the offer. Back at her apartment, Mei Ling stared at the ceiling. Su Ran was sleeping in the guest room, wrapped in borrowed pajamas and murmuring in her sleep. A person from her real life. A reminder of who she used to be. But Mei Ling no longer felt like that person. This world, the world of scripts and fame and false friends, was beginning to feel more real than anything else. And deep down she feared something. What if she wasn't supposed to go back? Chapter 8. A Choice of Endings. Su Ran sat across from Mei Ling, wide-eyed, clutching a small weathered journal in both hands. I found this, she said breathlessly, placing it gently on the table between them. It was in the bookstore down the street, titled The Price of Rebirth. I recognized the author's name. Mei Ling picked it up and flipped through the yellowed pages. It was a story within a story. The main character, a girl named Lin Yu, died in a car accident and woke up inside a novel. But what chilled Mei Ling to the bone were the final pages. Lin Yu is offered a choice. Stay and become part of this world forever, or leave and return to the moment before the accident. But at a price. What price? Mei Ling asked slowly. Su Ran's voice was quiet. She'd forget everything that happened here. Everyone she met. Everything she changed. Later that night, Mei Ling stared at her reflection in the vanity mirror of her dressing room. Would she forget this life? Forget the grueling survival show where she learned how strong she was. Forget the bond she forged with the audience, the crew, the struggling assistant who always brought her ginger tea without being asked? Would she forget the pain of letting go of Jichen? And the pride in knowing she did it for herself? He touched her chest. It ached. Not with fear. Love. For the version of herself she'd become. The next morning, a sealed envelope arrived at her apartment. No stamp. No name. Just a single line written in calligraphy. Choose. Inside was a single black and white photo of a road splitting in two. On the back. At midnight the choice becomes irreversible. Return or remain. Su Ran begged her to return. You don't belong here, Mei. This world was never real. None of this is. Mei Ling shook her head, voice low. But it is real now. Fame. The growth. The victories. If I go back it's like it never happened. Wouldn't you rather live than pretend? Su Ran asked. Mei Ling looked at her with a strange, knowing sadness. I was pretending in the real world. Living for a job I didn't love. Trying to please parents who never saw me. And dying, literally, trying to save a child that no one else helped. Su Ran was silent. On set that afternoon, Mei Ling filmed her final emotional monologue for Spring Echoes. The scene called for her to walk away from Lunyan Jichen, knowing she'd never see him again. When the director called action, she turned to him with eyes full of grace and farewell. I spent years trying to be the kind of woman you could love, she whispered. Now I'm becoming the kind of woman I can love. The entire set went still. Jichen froze, caught between performance and something heartbreakingly real. And when the director called cut, he didn't move. Not until Mei Ling walked past him without looking back. That night, when Jia barged into her apartment with news that sent her mind spinning. The CEO just called. Autumn Court wants you as the lead. Mei Ling blinked. I never auditioned. You don't need to. Yanzhou sent the script personally. And Mei, when Jia grinned. You'll be the first actress to headline under the new global label. This is huge. He dropped the thick script on her lap. Inside was a note from Yanzhou. You've already rewritten one story. How about another? Ly. At 11:58 p.m., Mei Ling stood at a fork in the road. Literally. Su Ran had led her to a place just outside the city, a rural path flanked by twin trails. One was lit by faint lanterns. The other led into shadow. Su Ran's voice shook. This is it. The door. If you take the left path, you go back. If you take the right, you stay. Mei Ling stared down both paths. Her heart beat louder than the wind. Are you coming with me? She asked softly. Su Ran hesitated. I can't. I think I was only meant to find you. To bring you this far. She hugged Mei Ling tightly. Don't forget who you are. Mei Ling stepped back. That's the thing. I finally know who I am. The clock on her phone turned to 12 o'clock. She turned. And walked down the right-hand path. The world didn't collapse. There was no blinding light or flash of memory. Just wind in the trees. The sound of her feet on gravel. And the certainty in her chest that she had made the right choice. She wasn't going back. She wasn't the second female lead anymore. She was writing her own ending. The next morning, Su Ran was gone. No trace. No note. As if she had never been here. But Mei Ling remembered everything. The storm. The choice. The goodbye. And when she stepped onto the set of her next project, Autumn Court, the crew greeted her not as a side character, but as a star. Yanzhou stood at the top of the stairs, watching her approach with quiet calculation, and something softer than that. You came, he said. I never left, she replied. Chapter 9, The Contract and the Crown. The contract was thick, bound in leather and weighed more than it should. Mei Ling flipped through the pages slowly, her name printed in gold at the top of the first one. Lead actress, Mei Ling. Production title, Autumn Court. Studio, Yuehua Global Entertainment. She signed her name without hesitation. For the first time it felt like she was writing a beginning, not an ending. The set of Autumn Court was nothing short of breathtaking. A sprawling, custom-built palace with intricate traditional architecture, candlelit walkways, and towering cherry blossom trees that shed pink petals with every breeze. Mei Ling stepped into her first costume, a regal crimson robe embroidered with phoenix feathers. You look like a queen, the stylist whispered. She didn't smile. He felt like one. The first day of filming was brutal. Autumn Court was a political historical drama, and her character, Crown Princess Jiwan, was fierce, brilliant and haunted by betrayal. The script demanded range, confrontation, tears, a steely gaze behind veils of diplomacy. But Mei Ling delivered. Scene after scene she immersed herself in Jiwan's skin, channeling every scar, every heartbreak, every hard-earned moment of power from her own life. The director, a notoriously harsh perfectionist, watched in silence after one particularly intense scene. Then quietly, she is Jiwan. Between takes, Lu Yanzhou watched her from a distance. He rarely spoke on set, but everyone felt his presence. Calm, precise. And yet, when Mei Ling's eyes met his between scenes, something passed between them, an unspoken thread neither could cut. When Jia teased her in private, "The CEO's watching you like he's planning a merger with you." Mei Ling rolled her eyes. "Don't start. I've had enough of entanglements with men in suits." But when Jia only smiled. "This one's different. He doesn't want to use you. He wants to bet on you." Lu Yanzhou approached her after the third day of filming. "You memorized 120 lines for a single take," he said without preamble. Mei Ling wiped the sweat from her brow. "Would you prefer I mess up and waste production budget?" He gave a rare, faint smile. "No. I prefer this. You're proving me right." "Right about what?" "That you're no longer a supporting character, in fiction or in life." She stared at him surprised. "You read the original novel?" "I read you." He met her gaze. "And I want to see how far you'll go." Fan reaction to Autumn Court's teaser trailer was explosive. At Dramatic 33, Mei Ling's eyes. She's possessed by the crown princess already. At Phoenix Cult. From villainous to victor. Queen behavior. At Luyan Global. Lu Yanzhou must be investing his soul. This production looks insane. Her follower count doubled in 48 hours. Brand endorsements trickled in. Fashion houses sent invitations. But none of it swayed her. He still remembered the jungle. The cold nights. The taste of real effort. The pain of being hated, and the quiet dignity of surviving it. This popularity wasn't luck. It was the reward for not giving up. One night Lu Yanzhou invited her to a rooftop dinner. Just the two of them. No photographers. No publicists. Just candlelight and silence broken only by the distant hum of the city below. "You've been watching me," Mei Ling said, sipping wine. "I've been studying you," he corrected. "Why?" He set down his glass. "Because I've built empires from people's potential. And yours? It's limitless." "But why help me?" she asked. "When no one else did." His eyes were unreadable. "Because I see what others were too blind, or too selfish, to see. And I don't want to control you, Mei Ling. I want to back you." A beat of silence. Then she said with a soft, almost broken smile, "You're the first man to ever say that." The following week, news of her lead role went global. International networks picked up Autumn Court. She was invited to speak at a global acting symposium. Jichin. He watched from the sidelines. He tried to call once. She let it ring. This time she chose silence. As filming neared its halfway point, Mei Ling was asked to shoot the hardest scene of the entire drama. Crown Princess Ji Wan's final confrontation with the Emperor, played by a legendary veteran actor. The script called for rage, fire, controlled fury that had simmered for years. And Mei Ling, channeling every rejection, every insult, every cruel rumor, delivered it like thunder in velvet. The veteran actor clapped when the cameras stopped. "You're going to win awards for this," he said. But Mei Ling only smiled faintly. "That's not why I did it." He looked puzzled. "Then why?" She looked into the lens even after it stopped rolling. "To prove I deserved better," she said softly. Backstage Lu Yanzhou waited. When she stepped into the green room, he stood and offered her a bottle of water. "You're blazing," he said. She met his eyes. "Is that praise or concern?" He stepped closer. "Both." They stood quietly in the shadows of the set, where her journey had begun. And he said low and serious, "When this drama ends, I want to offer you more than just another project." She raised an eyebrow. "What then?" He held her gaze. "A partnership. A stake in your future. And mine." Chapter 10, Rewriting Mei Ling. The final scene of Autumn Court was set to be the most intense yet. A pivotal moment where Crown Princess Ji Wan is forced to choose between love and power, between the man she loved and the throne she was destined to inherit. Mei Ling stood before the camera, the weight of her character's fate bearing down on her. In this moment, Ji Wan must decide whether to betray everything she's worked for and save the man she loved, or betray her own heart to solidify her legacy. She stared at the script in her hands, the words written in bold, unyielding strokes. Love or power? Love or legacy? But it wasn't just Ji Wan who was facing a choice. It was Mei Ling. Behind the scenes, the world had changed. Social media buzzed with excitement over her performance. Fans flocked to every interview. She was no longer just the girl who fell victim to scheming rivals. She was the woman rewriting her story, and they loved her for it. Yanzhou had made sure of it. His empire of influence ensured that Mei Ling was offered the best roles, the best opportunities. Brands fought to align with her image, and drama critics hailed her as one of the most talented actresses of her generation. But Mei Ling had never been someone who lived for applause. She had faced too much pain, too many lies to be satisfied by fame alone. That night, Yanzhou invited her to dinner again. This time the setting was different. No glitzy restaurant, no press. Just the two of them at his private estate, a low-key meal of freshly prepared dishes. The atmosphere was serene. Simple. Mei Ling, he began, breaking the silence, I've been watching you for a while. And I've been thinking about what comes next. She looked up, noticing the serious tone in his voice. What do you mean? He paused, setting down his chopsticks. I want to offer you more than just Autumn Court. I want you to join my agency, not just as an actress but as a partner. She blinked. Partner? Yes, he said, voice steady. Together we could reshape the entire entertainment industry. We can create projects that challenge the norm. You're not just an actress, Mei Ling. You're a force in the making. She sat back, absorbing the offer. It was a powerful one that many could only dream of. But it was also a choice that would bind her to him in ways far deeper than professional collaboration. Days passed. Mei Ling continued to film, but the weight of her decision loomed ever larger. Should she accept? Should she stay in this world of power and influence with Yanzhou by her side? The world she had built, the person she had become, was now so far removed from the girl who had died in that car accident. Mei Ling had rewritten her fate, but was it enough? Could she truly say she was happy in this life? Or was it time to let go, to return to the world she had left behind, to Su Ran, to the quiet life she had once known? One evening, while walking through the sprawling estate grounds, Mei Ling found herself standing at the edge of a lake, the water reflecting the stars above. Her thoughts were a whirlwind, pulling her in 1,000 directions. You've been avoiding me. She turned, startled, to see Yanzhou standing at the edge of the water, his gaze fixed on her. I've been thinking, she said quietly, about the offer. About everything. I don't know if it's the right choice. He stepped closer, his presence calm, unwavering. I told you before. I'm not offering you a contract. I'm offering you freedom. She looked at him, feeling the depth of his words settle in her chest. What if I'm not ready? She asked. He studied her for a moment. You've already rewritten your life. You've shown everyone that you can survive, that you're more than what they thought you were. What more do you need to prove to yourself? Her breath hitched. I don't know. For the first time she felt vulnerable, unmasked. Yanzhou's eyes softened. You don't need to decide now. You're the one who gets to choose your path. You don't owe anyone anything, not even me. The final day of filming arrived. Mei Ling stood in front of the camera for the last scene, her final moment as Crown Princess Ji-won. The entire crew watched, breathless, as she delivered the lines with the same intensity that had defined her throughout the drama. The crown, once a symbol of her character's pain, now felt like a symbol of her strength. Your Majesty, the Emperor says in the final scene, what will you do now? Ji-won takes a breath. Her gaze sharpens, and for the first time she makes a choice that is solely her own. I will rule and I will love, Mei Ling says, her voice unwavering. But I will never be anyone's second choice. The camera captures her, perfectly still, as the crew erupts into applause. That night, Mei Ling stood once more on the rooftop of Yanzhou's estate. The sky stretched out before her, endless and full of possibility. Yanzhou joined her, his presence steady. She turned to him, taking in a breath. I've made my decision. He waited, eyes locked on hers. I'm not going back, she said. I'm not returning to that other life. His expression softened. You've chosen. I've written my own ending. And it starts with me, not as the second female lead, not as a supporting character, but as the woman who finally gets to choose her own fate. In the weeks that followed, Mei Ling took the reins of her career and her life. Under the guidance of Yanzhou, she co-founded a new agency, one that focused on empowering women in the entertainment industry, creating opportunities for them to tell their own stories. The world, it seemed, had finally caught up with Mei Ling's vision. She wasn't just rewriting her story. She was rewriting the entire industry. One quiet evening, Mei Ling stood in front of a full-length mirror, looking at the woman who had once been a victim of circumstances. Now she saw a woman who had chosen herself. And that was enough. Extra chapter. A moment between us. The evening air was cool, the stars bright and full in the clear night sky. Mei Ling stood on the balcony of her apartment, looking out over the city below. The world had changed so much for her in such a short time. She had moved beyond the pages of Autumn Court, beyond the set, beyond the roles that once defined her. She was no longer just the second female lead, she was herself. And yet something was still missing. A presence she couldn't quite place. The sound of footsteps reached her ears, soft and deliberate. Mei Ling didn't need to turn around to know who it was. Yanzhou. He had a way of moving, effortless yet commanding. A way of being present without saying much, but enough to make her feel like the world could stop spinning and everything would still be okay. I thought I might find you here, he said, his voice calm as always. Mei Ling turned slowly, offering him a small smile. I needed some air. He stepped closer, his gaze softening as he looked at her. A bit too much pressure? She shook her head, her smile fading as she looked back out at the city. Not pressure, just a feeling. Like I'm still figuring out who I am in this new life. He tilted his head, studying her. You've come so far already. You're not the girl you used to be. Mei Ling met his eyes, the weight of his words sinking into her heart. I guess I'm not, she murmured, a quiet resolve settling in her chest. But sometimes I wonder if I'll ever truly be enough. For me. There was a long pause between them, as though the weight of her words lingered in the air. Then Yanzhou stepped forward, closing the distance between them. He reached out, brushing a strand of hair from her face, his fingers lingering on her skin. You're more than enough, Mei Ling, he said softly, his voice lower now, more intimate. You've always been enough. Her breath hitched slightly at his touch, the simplicity of his words cutting through the lingering doubts she had about herself. She knew he was always careful with his words, always guarded. But in this moment, there was something raw about the way he spoke, something unspoken between them that neither had addressed directly. Mei Ling's heart thudded a little faster in her chest. She wasn't sure when it had happened, but somewhere along the way she had stopped seeing Yanzhou as just the CEO. He wasn't just her partner or mentor. He had become something else. And the realization hit her like a wave, sweeping her under in the best possible way. Yanzhou looked at her for a long moment, his gaze intense, and then his voice broke the silence. I've watched you fight for everything, Mei Ling. Your career. Your choices. Your future. He stepped closer, his presence enveloping her now, and his breath brushed lightly against her skin. But there's something I haven't seen you fight for. She raised an eyebrow, confused for a moment. What's that? He lowered his voice, his tone growing tender. Your heart. Before Mei Ling could react, Yanzhou reached out and cupped her face in his hands, his fingers warm against her skin. He leaned in slowly, giving her every chance to pull away, every opportunity to stop him. But she didn't. She couldn't. The world around them seemed to fade away, leaving just the two of them standing there in the quiet of the night, the weight of their shared silence building between them. Then his lips brushed gently against hers. It was soft. So, a promise. Mei Ling's heart fluttered in her chest, and she felt her knees weaken slightly, as though the earth beneath her could no longer hold her up. She closed her eyes, allowing herself to be lost in the moment, lost in the way his touch made her feel like she was the only person in the world. When he pulled away just an inch, their breaths mingled in the cool night air. Mei Ling, Yanzhou whispered, his voice thick with emotion. She opened her eyes, gazing up at him. The man who had seen her not just as a character or a project, but as a person, who had believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. You don't need to say anything, she whispered back, her hand gently resting on his chest over his heart. I feel it. And just like that, they were back together, their lips meeting again, this time with more urgency, more need, as though they had been waiting for this moment their entire lives. The kiss deepened, slow but filled with a shared understanding of everything they had been through, everything they had fought for. Yanzhou's hands moved to her waist, pulling her closer, and Mei Ling didn't resist. She let him. She let herself be held, be cared for. She had rewritten her story, yes. But maybe, just maybe, there was something beautiful about having someone to walk with her side by side into the future. When they finally broke apart, they stood there holding each other, the sound of the city below now distant and irrelevant. The world outside could keep turning, but Mei Ling knew she wasn't alone anymore. Not in the way she had been. She had her choice. She had her path. And with Lu Yanzhou by her side, she was ready to face whatever came next. Thank you for taking this journey with Mei Ling as she rewrote her destiny. May we all find the courage to write our own stories.